to accept responsibility and do all of that. But we've taken the system and turned it on its head, and now we're talking about, well, if is referred to a collaboration program because I'm not going to do that, I was innocent. Well, you can't make the child go to a juvenile adjudication at that point. That's not how this works now. The child would be able to opt in. And I'm just telling you, that ups the stakes in a way for that child that you would never want to do. You can talk about the complexities of the decisions here, but that wouldn't be anything that I would let my child do or my juvenile client do. You know, take me into court, roll the dice. Because it could well be that the child, after all, 12-year-olds are not known for their judgment. That's why we have the system. And some do better than others. But every year we have some bill to relieve 18 to 25-year-olds of responsibility. So imagine a 12-year-old. He or she might just insist they didn't do anything all the way down the tubes. They might do that. So I guess I just think the amendment, with all respect, is, in a practical matter, doesn't make any sense. But it does point out, and I think this was the nature of the testimony, was trying to point out the mismatch between what we're trying to accomplish and what the bill and its programmatically is doing. I'm not going to ask for a yes or a no vote on this. It's just like, I think a whole set of juvenile lawyers will read this and go, wonder what that's all about.
Senator Kirkmeyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just thought I would point out what the law enforcement community thinks about L128. So they're like, apparently L128, 128 is supposed to address due process, as already stated, and says that a 10 to 12-year-old referred to a collaborative management program instead may opt into the juvenile justice system to litigate a case in court, which just seems totally opposite of what this bill has been saying, but apparently we're putting this forward as a due process type of thing. But what the law enforcement folks are saying, when law enforcement determines the defendant is below the age of prosecution, which is stated throughout this whole bill that they shall not be prosecuted, investigative resources are halted. So back to my comment earlier, where if they're going to just fill out a form, they're not going to go do any more investigation. They're going to fill out the form that someone made up that they're required to do. They're told in this bill that they shall not be prosecuted. So investigative resources will be halted, and this would force law enforcement into a choice on all 10 to 12-year-old cases. The choices are either 1, continue investigation that is likely a waste of time and resources because most or all will opt for the collaborative management program system. Or 2, not expend investigative resources and then have inadequate investigation for the criminal justice system, followed by a very quick catch-up investigation if and when the juvenile opts into the court system. So I don't think they really like the amendment. Then with regard to district attorneys, they basically kind of think this is borderline absurd. That it offers, it's the answer to the lack of due process for offenders in the current bill. In a nutshell, it says that if the kid wants to take the position that they didn't do anything wrong, defend himself, he can have the option of submitting himself to the juvenile system with, of course, the right to counsel to make that decision. So I think we're all having difficulty following this. So it just appears that, again, we're not going to have any investigation. There isn't going to be any evidence. There's only going to be a form. And it doesn't appear that this amendment will actually do anything other than kind of gum up the works. And in the meantime, while all this stuff is happening, where the child gets the option to opt in, and there were days mentioned in here, I believe. If he decides to go the route of going to court,